Well, let's talk about the movie.
Sure.
In a world of movie references flying over his head, one man will finally watch them. This is the Matt and Blonde Show movie review.
Tonight's movie is the 1999 Mike Judge film Office Space, in which a trio of disgruntled software company workers conspires to get revenge against their bosses through a sophisticated computer virus scheme, only to be outdone by another colleague for whom a stolen stapler, missing paychecks, and reassignment to exterminator work is the last straw. From movie picker Charles, Mike Judge commentary on corporate America. Hilarious memes and characters make this a must-watch movie of the 90s. As always, your review and your rating.
Well, I've seen this movie like a dozen times, but I rewatched it for this segment, and I love Mike Judge. And it was really good for a rewatch. It was a fun, lighthearted movie. It perfectly captures how mundane and pointless corporate life is. Like every corporate job, I would always just do like barely enough to not get fired. Just barely enough. And it was just about making rich people richer, and it didn't bring any meaning or any value to my life, just being like this corporate wage slave. Do any of our jobs really matter? Although I think our jobs matter. I like our jobs. We're lucky. Should we bother?
It's a trade I would make again if I had
for sure. Yeah. For those of you that don't already know this, we both came from wage slave jobs and just decided to quit and do this podcast. And
I imagine our jobs, I know mine was very similar to this environment. So we both left something like this prior.
Yeah, totally. Should we even bother trying to convince ourselves that our jobs matter if we're in this situation? Like I was constantly trying to do that at my old job. Like, well, I am working for an expert witness that blah, fucking blah, who cares? And also, how much boredom and lack of meaning should we be accepting in our lives? And I think they really answer that in this movie. It's like, you get one life. You need to do something that matters to you. You need to not waste your time. And he didn't end up like becoming a surgeon or something. He just wanted to work with his hands, and he was just totally happy, like in a better relationship and doing construction work. And that was great. Mike Judge has this incredible way of just connecting with the modern zeitgeist. He did it in Silicon Valley and Beavis and Butthead and King of the Hill. He just really understands like a truly diverse group of people, and like where the heart is of people that have to go to their shitty job every day. They hate their boss. And I don't know. I thought it was a great rewatch. It was really fun. 4 out of 5.
All right. We are basically in the same spot here, and for largely the same reasons, but I really appreciated the capture of that mentality of working that mediocre cubicle job.
Yeah.
And if you inevitably end up in that mindset. How can I skate by doing the minimum possible while escaping scrutiny?
Yeah, exactly.
And it's tempting to do that, but you do realize you're strategizing to escape that scrutiny. You're really strategizing against yourself.
You are.
And I appreciated how everybody who bucked that actually was rewarded. So Peter obviously decided just to say, screw this, I'm not doing this anymore. And was ironically promoted, of course. But even Tom, who got fired, he tried to play that game. He got fired and serendipitously finds himself with a drunk driving payout, or he gets hit by a drunk driver after a failed suicide and gets a payout.
Yeah.
The point behind all the comedy here and the interview scenes with the consultants are just excellent, is that if you're strategizing to do the minimum amount of work, you're probably in the wrong environment. And that you're really strategizing against yourself. You should think about that, and you should think if you're in the right spot. If you don't want to work hard, why? And if you're in a sort of environment that doesn't recognize and appreciate hard work, you should probably change environments. It also perfectly captured a lot of the subtle annoyances of workplace communication. So we've all had that boss who's like too nice and too much of a people person that they won't just explain things in plain terms. So obviously the TPS memo thing, the Flair bit, it's all of this sugar-coated workplace communication that doesn't tell the employee exactly what you want. I guess in the case of the TPS memo they did, but the point in that exercise is that they're not listening to him communicate back. They're just stuck in their own sugar-coated lines that they're supposed to deliver.
Right.
They're stuck in their own bullshit, and all the communication is subtle but infuriating. And that's what this movie really does well. It's a rare kind of comedy where the writing is great, but the jokes are how infuriating every situation is. To make irritation funny is sort of a rare but cool thing that I liked about this movie. Yeah. And I also I mentioned Tom, who got fired and got his payout, but it was a depiction of how that opportunity presents itself elsewhere. And it really made me think about being in a similar situation 5.5 years ago, deciding, am I really going to make an idiotic decision to abandon my perfectly safe, perfectly mediocre job that I hate and try to build something on the internet that doesn't make any sense, but I know that makes me happy?
Right.
Or am I just going to sit here and accept mediocrity? And it was scary to leave that security and leave the benefits and leave the perfectly mediocre salary that I had, but all of the risks were scary. But you have to make that jump. And once you do, that's how you realize, my God, there's been a greener pasture over here the whole time. I was just afraid of the fence. I might have got a few splinters jumping over it, but
I know. But
the point, that's another serious point of the movie. You got to take those risks, and you got to be oriented. You got to have your all your values properly ordered. And what it is that you're trying to achieve. And that's not to say you should love every job that you do, but if you're doing a job that you hate and that you're strategizing to do the least of, you got to figure, how does that fit into the long-term plan? Am I doing this to leap to the next thing? Or am I just doing this because I like the security and comfort of the mediocrity? And if it's that, you got to bail on that. As scary as it might be.
Just for a paycheck. Yeah.
Only a couple complaints. The ending didn't make a lot of sense to me, as in, Lumberg was clearly aware of the theft.
Right.
Because
So how does the fire take care of this?
Exactly. It's like if someone broke into your house and stole jewelry out of your safe, and then a day later your house burned down, you'd probably be more preoccupied with the immediacy of the arson.
But you'd still,
you'd be like, who the hell stole? And you knew before the arson happened. Hey, my jewelry's missing. You'd still follow up on that.
Well, he didn't know because didn't it burn down before he got the letter?
No, well, what happened, there's the scene where Milton is down in the basement and Lumberg comes down there and says, you're going to kill these cockroaches. And that conversation is interrupted by Lumberg's colleagues.
Oh, that's right.
And they come in and say, there's a massive accounting error.
Money. Yeah,
you got to come check it out, which... To me, it would have made more sense if they never actually discovered the accounting error and the whole thing just burned down, because then you could plausibly write it off as some confusion with the costs of the fire. You're reading into finer details of a comedy, I guess. And
we also were asking that question. Yeah.
Also, once it was alleged that Joanna had slept with Lumberg, my wife and I were making all sorts of jokes about what Lumberg's mannerisms would be like in such a scenario. And then before we knew it, the scene was already in front of us. And it was funny. And I credit the movie for going for it. But it also it's one of those things that just sticks in your mind. And you'd like not to have that image in your head. I can't decide if I want to if I should credit the movie for that or if I should
Oh.
penalize it. But for that image in my mind, I put it in the worst section of the review. Anyway, I'm with you that it is a 4-wiki movie.
All right.
Pretty good.
Pretty good.
And I could be persuaded to a 5. It's right on the cusp. So I really enjoyed it, and I certainly would recommend it to anybody, particularly if you've worked in that sort of office environment. I think you'll really enjoy it. But as far as the audience review or the audience rating, people generally like it. Early vote giving it a solid 5 and 4 majority. Actually, the order is perfect. It's a plurality of 5, then 4, then 3, then 2, then 1. So very few people hate this movie.
All right.
Next week is a movie that I forgot to include in the vote the first week, and I've never heard of, but it's Snatch from 2000. A comedy featuring Brad Pitt and Jason Statham and others.
Oh, okay.
About diamonds and boxing. I watched the trailer, but I have no idea what it's about beyond that. So we will watch that. And then as far as the movie after that, the nominees are Predator, The Fifth Element, RoboCop, Rear Window, The Big Lebowski, Network, or of course you can reject the list and vote for a randomly selected top-rated movie instead. As a reminder, if you'd like to read my movie reviews, comment how wrong I am, submit your own rating, vote for the next movie, and sign up for the chance to nominate the movies for the month. The one and only place to do that is in my weekly movie review column, linked in the description and on the homepage of the website. That's mattchristiansenmedia.com.